Dre Greenlaw, most likely done for the year. Trent Williams, absolutely done for the year. Jalen Moore, also done for the year. Spencer Burford, maybe done for the year. Go get him, Brock. Good evening. Welcome to Cohn and Krueger. That's Larry Krueger. I'm Grant Cohn. Kyle Shanahan just had his weekly Monday conference call, and there was a bunch of news. Let's start with the Dre Greenlaw news. They won't say that the injury is anything more than calf soreness. That's the official title of the injury. It's calf soreness, and he most likely, Greenlaw, is out for the season. Kyle Shanahan gave a lot of context. He said he wants this to be Dre's decision because, of course, if Dre can show that he's bounced back and he's healthy, that he didn't say the words, but he could make a lot of money. So there's a balance here, and he wants Dre to make the decision, but essentially they're leaning towards shutting him down. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think that they only really should have a strong opinion on this if they really plan on signing him back. If they don't plan on signing him back, then let him do whatever he wants, right? It's his career. It's his career. Let him do what he wants unless you're going to sign him. And they should sign him. And Lynch went on KNBR last week and made it seem like it's just all about, crossing the T's and dotting the I's, and they love Dre and he ain't going anywhere and they want him to be a Niner for life. All right. If that's the case, then yeah, shut him down. Don't play him anymore. I know I do respect the fact, and I know you do as well, Grant, that this is an emotional game, and Dre's an emotional guy, and it was a huge emotional deal, and Shanahan said it, for him to get back. And it was inspiring to watch him get back. It was great for the team. It was great for him. It was something he needed. And so they gave him that last game against the Rams. He was awesome in a half. They had to shut him down because of the soreness and the pain. He came out in this next game, kind of showed everybody he can go back to back, but then came out right away after 4 plays or something like that. Because he had to be saved from himself because he plays 100 miles an hour. The bottom line is this season's been bad enough. You cannot have more guys lost for 2025 because you decide to play them in garbage time in 2024. So that will be unacceptable. So I'm not playing Dre. I wouldn't play Trent. I wouldn't play others as well. But I'm glad that they're shutting him down. And I hope they sign him.
Yeah, and the one thing that I was a little disconcerted by when he spoke was he said he wants Dre to make the decision. Like, no, this is the whole thing that Fred Warner and Nick Bosa were talking about. You got to protect Dre from himself. If it's Dre's decision, he's going to play. And he's going to injure himself further. Like, you got to step in. And to your point, if they're not going to sign him this offseason, then they're not really in a position to tell him what to do. I think what the players and the team are saying is that he's absolutely essential to what they do, and they need him back. And I think maybe the balancing act here is that the Niners really can't offer him more than a 1-year deal. And I think Dre was probably hoping that he could just wow people to such an extent over this last month that he could get like a multi-year deal. And he's got to come back to earth on that one. That's not going to happen. But you could come back on a good 1-year deal with the Niners and have a full offseason, be actually ready to play, and then get the big money contract.
Yeah, I mean, all I would say, the cap is there's a lot of different ways to slice the cap, and you can almost have any individual player you want, but you can't have every player you want. This guy means more than his stats. This guy means more than his jersey. This guy means more to them, I think, or should mean more to them in their defense than just one inside linebacker. You can find a lot of inside linebackers, but this 49er defense never gave up a 100-yard rusher, and they've given up a 100-yard rusher in 4 of the last 5 games. And don't tell me that doesn't have anything to do with the fact that Greenlaw hasn't played. I mean, it's cause and effect. I mean, they miss him and Aziz in a terrible way. So whether Dre comes back or they go find their next Dre and Dre moves on, I don't want to see him play anymore this year. And I think for his sake, they ought to just not let him play anymore this year. I know that probably hurts him because he loves the game, but you got to have that payday coming, man. He's He's, he needs to get this next contract for his family. It's probably going to be the last major contract he signs. It's really important that he gets his money. So I would not let him play the last 2 games.
Do you see the Niners not re-signing him? Because the way I see it, I don't know if he can stay healthy, but he's the heart of this team. And without him, they were flat all season. Maybe they weren't flat because he was gone, but he's never flat. And a bunch of key players on this team have said he's their favorite teammate ever. Nick Bosa, Fred Warner. I think they would be devastated if Dre Greenlaw didn't come back. And I wonder if they would look at like the powers that be differently. I mean, they got rid of Armstead, and I think the Niners let it slide. But I don't know if they would let this one slide.
Armstead was a little bit easier to come to grips with because he had chronic injuries. I don't know that Dre's injuries are chronic. I just think that he's been beaten up. I do, you got to be responsible. You can't get tied up in some massive long-term deal. My fear is that because he's played so big for the Niners, and the Niners have played in so many high-profile games, that there's a lot of the Niners opponents that are dreaming the dream of Dre Greenlaw in an Eagles jersey or Dre Greenlaw in a Buffalo jersey. And that, to me, is just going to make the Super Bowl the impossible dream. And if I'm a personnel guy, I don't want to make the Super Bowl an impossible situation. So I would sign this guy. I'd break my budget or stretch my budget to bring him in because I think there's more value than just to the player. I'm not going to blow up my whole cap to keep him, but man, if I'm John Lynch, made it seem like they really badly want to keep him. I hope they show him that same respect when it comes time to exchange the offers.
Okay, we can move on from Greenlaw. The last thing I want to say is I think it was really irresponsible to play him in this game. I mean, it was one thing to play him against the Rams. He was healthy, he was fresh, and the game mattered. It was heroic what he did. But he got hurt in that game, and he missed practice time this week, and he was questionable for this game, and it didn't matter. So you knew he wasn't 100% healthy. He hadn't he was just coming off a big game. It was a week and a half. I think they didn't have to shut him down for the year, but they could have said, Dre, not this week. And it's not up to you. We're protecting you from yourself, as opposed to putting him out there and having him, tighten up on the 4th play. I feel like I don't even think that was like hindsight, Captain Obvious. Like, I think a lot of people said it before the game. Don't play Greenlaw in this game. It's too bad it came to this.
And yet there's a relative coldness to the way sometimes the team looks at the players. Now, I'm not saying that Shanahan was cold, but he did say in this presser today, hey, man, when he was asked about motivation, he's like, hey, you get 17 checks. In other words, you get 17 checks for 17 games.
Can you tell the people that weren't on the call, because that was like the key moment of the call. I'm glad you picked up on that. Like the question and what he said.
Well, he was asked, what is the motivation of the team? And obviously you're trying to play.
When there's nothing left to play for.
When there's nothing,
how do you get him up for this?
How do you get him up? How do you motivate the guys? And he's like, hey, look, when you sign up to play pro football, you understand that you're a professional and you get 17 checks for 17 games. And it's all, and anytime basically anytime you're putting anything on film, the whole league's evaluating. And he's like, if our goal is to play better and win games, period. And their goal should be to play 17 games because they're getting paid for 17 games. And motivation is like something for, high school Harry, or, that's something for college. That's not, you don't motivate in the pros. You're the head coach, but you're not the motivator. They show up with briefcases and they're motivated properly all by themselves. Which is kind of
Can you imagine Dan Campbell getting that question and answering it that way? Well, I mean, players like money, right?
Right.
Checks are fun. Like, I don't think Jim Harbaugh would say, but hey, Kyle, to each his own.
He also said that if you aren't that way, then you don't belong here, kind of a thing. Like if you're not a professional enough to play full tilt for the full season, then you don't belong in our locker room. You don't belong in our culture. He also kind of added that.
Right. That's true. He did say that. Stephen Heinold said Cohn loves, I ain't reading that. Thank you, though. I appreciate it for the $5. All right, more news. Trent Williams, they're shutting him down for the year. Kyle Shanahan isn't that careful with his words. So for Greenlaw, I don't know if we're going to shut him down for the year. It's up to him. We'll talk to him. Trent Williams, he's like, yeah, he's not going to play again this year because his ankle isn't quite healing the way we'd like. Plus our situation. You heard him say that, right?
Right.
Our situation. So for Trent Williams, it just doesn't make sense for him to play when he's not 100% healthy. To which I would say, yes, I completely agree. It's interesting that there is a class and he's in that of people who don't need to be playing right now. Jalen Moore can't play, quad injury. Spencer Burford may not be able to play, calf injury. The Niners could be down to a practice squad left tackle for the last 2 games, and maybe not even a guy on their practice squad, maybe someone else's practice squad. What is your instant reaction to this news?
A couple things. I mean, one, good. Trent Williams does not need to play. Trent Williams is a freaking warrior. I don't know that people realize this, but we saw him in the locker room. I forget what week it was, but Grant, the guy could not get from his locker to the other side of the room. I mean, he was barely moving. Every step he was grimacing. He played that Sunday. He took the Toradol shot, and he played that Sunday. But anybody who's ever taken those shots or anybody who's been around football players who do take those shots know that there's a residual cost to that. You know what I mean? You're going to get out there Sunday, but it's going to feel like hell for a few weeks. And I think, that's where the season was in the balance. Like, he couldn't play. And now I think he probably could play, but now it's not worth him playing. So I'm glad he's not going to play. And as far as what is the message that I would get out of this? No more Brock Purdy. If you can't play Trent and you can't play Banks and you can't play Moore and you don't have, a full contingent of offensive linemen and you're already out of it and you need to find out about Tanner Mordecai anyway, then just play Tanner Mordecai. And that's how I feel about it. I don't want to see Brock Purdy anymore this year. I think Kyle's going to play him, but I don't think he should.
Yeah, he was asked straight up. Eric Branch of the San Francisco Chronicle, way to go, Eric, said, hey, because he was like sort of putting the pieces together, like, okay, so just going to start a practice squad left tackle, huh? This is your franchise quarterback, supposedly. Like, maybe don't play him. I mean, you just said that you're not playing Trent Williams because of the situation you're in, partly. So does that apply to Brock Purdy? And goes, Eric, I got a football team. I have to, at least I got a football team. What do you want me to do? Like, okay.
Sit Brock Purdy and play Tanner Mordecai. Are we not speaking English? Do we need a translator? They have those new little things that you can put in your ear that will tell you like foreign languages and translate them into English. Maybe he needs to be translated for him.
Because it's not just the left tackle.
Purdy. Brock Purdy. No. Tanner Mordecai.
Yeah, get someone to sign language or something. Because it's not just the left tackle spot. It's also going to be Nick Zakelj at left guard.
Right.
And then you got Jake Brendel and Colton McKivitz, who are backup quality players anyway. Sorry.
I mean, and the numbers show that Brock Purdy, when kept clean, Brock Purdy, when under pressure, not the same Brock Purdy. I mean, the numbers in this game were really clear. Brock Purdy, when he was under pressure in this game, 4 of 11, 44 yards, an interception, and 3 sacks. Brock Purdy with a clean pocket against Miami, 22 of 29. That's a 76% completion percentage for 269 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. So, yeah, you keep them clean, and you got a good chance to have them see some good things. If you don't keep them clean, you're not. And, when the pocket is clean, Purdy this year, sixth best quarterback in the EPA per dropback. So he gets it done if you can protect him. And if he's your guy going forward, that's awesome. You better be able to protect him. And since you can't protect him here at the end, and you got Detroit and Arizona and their physical football teams who are playing a lot more physical ball right now than you are, I wouldn't put Purdy in harm's way there. I'd play Tanner Mordecai so you can find out what he's got.
Yeah, it's like the idea that he could somehow do something in the next couple of games that would affect his contract negotiation. These games don't count. There's no pressure on these games. I don't know. It kind of seems to me like I get some irresponsible speculation. They're not going to go to Brock and say, hey, we don't want you to play these next 2 games because he's trying to earn that contract, and he hasn't yet. He's had a down season. And again, I struggle to see how he could do anything well enough to actually get that, to actually change anything the next couple of games. But if he struggles the next couple of games, which he probably will behind a Swiss cheese offensive line, then the Niners could use that against him in the contract negotiation, and they could see it as a way to save money. So, hey, Brock, go get him and maybe give us that hometown discount in the process. That's irresponsible to say, but I almost feel like it's like the unspoken thing. Like, yeah, go ahead, play. Could work out for us. Now, don't get hurt.
Right. I mean, just imagine if somehow he suffered a serious injury and couldn't play at all in 2025. Really?
In a game that didn't matter, behind Nick Zakel and some person who's been on the team for 3 days.
I mean, it's ironic as hell that he just gave his offensive lineman Toyotas, the greatest Christmas present anybody's ever given a group of offensive linemen, any quarterback has ever given his linemen. And yet his line is not very good.
And the left tackle isn't going to have one of those Toyotas. It's going to be some guy from some other team who's like, wait, where's my Toyota? And Brock's like, you haven't earned it yet. Sorry. That was Christmas.
Right.
Although Christmas, what if they sign another offensive tackle tomorrow on Christmas Eve? Does Brock owe him a TRD plus?
Yeah, exactly. Where's my
You want me to block for you? I like Toyotas too.
Maybe the guys who come in at the end, maybe we'll get like a Camry, maybe something like that, maybe a Corolla.
Hey, the entire lineup at Toyota is tried and true. Okay, it's a little boring, but that's because it works. Shout out Toyota.
There you
go. I'm a Kia guy though. I'm a Kia driver.
Oh, okay, good to know.
So I feel like with Toyota, you pay for that reliability. That's a brand you can trust since 1985. Kia's on the come up. You know what I mean? Toyota, you're paying for that sense of secure. What are we talking about? Sorry, Brock Purdy. Should they sit him?
Blake Griffin could never dunk over a Toyota, but he did dunk one time over a Kia.
That's the official car of the NBA. What's the official car of the NFL? Toyota.
In the parking lot,
I don't know.
It looks like
didn't Steve Young have a lot of Toyota commercials back when I was a kid?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I loved those. It's a Niners.
I think
tradition.
Ronnie may own a dealership.
Wow.
I think Ronnie may have partial ownership of Tracy Toyota.
Well, if things don't work out for Brock Purdy, maybe he could get a partial. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it.
Oh, wow.
So they're not going to sit him. But again, like if he gets hurt in the next couple of games and it's like some freaking guy from the practice squad who whiffs on a block, you can't blame some freaking guy from the practice squad. You kind of have to blame Kyle. And it's like falls into a pattern of him seeming to not really protect players who aren't named Trent Williams. I mean, he didn't even protect Christian McCaffrey. He was like, oh, you're healthy? Get the hell on the field.
17 checks, 17.
Yeah.
The one thing I'll say, not to, say anything about the practice squad, but it's not just the practice squad that kind of mentally no-showed this game. On the second drive, holding call, Debo has a beautiful run, holding call on Banks. Banks is not playing particularly well. Then there's a false start on George Kittle. I mean, the Niners had 2 key penalties on their offensive second drive.
Did you catch that Kyle Shanahan blamed George Kittle for one of the illegal formations and Kittle after the game blamed himself?
No, I didn't catch that.
He did. One of them was on Pearsall, but I guess the other one was on Kittle. And that's what Kittle and Kyle said. I don't know if they're just trying to take some heat off of Pearsall, but that was their official story.
Well, I mean, great. I mean, so now it's on Kittle instead of Pearsall. Now it's on a guy who's been, he's a Pro Bowler and is one of your best players. I mean, I get it. Maybe they're trying to take some pressure off Pearsall, but I mean, to me, this game was very, very frustrating on a lot of fronts. We can get into all of it, but to me, it wasn't just Kittle played well, and Pearsall had some. We all saw Pearsall getting yelled at by Leonard Hankerson. But you heard Kyle today when he was asked about it. He's like, Ricky likes to be coached hard. Ricky likes to be coached, or I don't know if coached hard. He said, Ricky likes to be coached. So in other words, it's okay that Hankerson was just in his grill. But you know what? It is okay. It's football. To me, I mean, a football coach is not a football coach if he doesn't yell at somebody.
That's the first time I've ever seen Leonard Hankerson coach anyone. Like, I've
But
seen
he
him
seriously
put
was
the
in
wide
his
receivers
grill.
through drills, but he basically just seems like their friend. He chops it up with them. They laugh together. That was the first time I actually saw him try to. What did Chris Forrester called it? Like, traumatic events are more memorable, so I like to yell at players. He said that. Yeah, it was like he was trying to give Ricky Pearsall a traumatic event. That was really
and the S rolls downhill, man. I don't think for a second that Kyle Shanahan probably sounded out Hankerson about his receivers there, and the S rolls downhill. So, head coach gets mad at me, I'm getting mad at you. I think probably I wouldn't doubt if that's the way it came down.
I would think so. Absolutely. It's like your player can't even focus. I drafted this guy. I said he reminded me of me. I never would have made that mistake. All right, let's stick with Brock. So we're talking about, should they protect him? Is he their franchise quarterback? This all assumes that they're all in with Brock. But I think when Jed York said this offseason that the Niners were like fully prepared to give Brock Purdy a huge contract, I don't think they were anticipating this season. And the problem with this season is it keeps getting worse. It's not getting better. The Rams game was awful. And this past game against the Dolphins was kind of embarrassing too. Both of them ended with late picks from Brock. So, is he costing himself money? Is his stock dropping in your eyes? And what are you seeing in these last couple of games that sort of gives you pause?
Well, I mean, okay, there was a play in this game that I seriously would love to ask Brock about. It was the 2nd and 6 first quarter pass to Juwan Jennings. There was no tipped ball. There was no defender in the way. He had an open passing lane. Jennings was not that far away, and he bounced it. And Jennings dove for it and almost made the catch, but it was ruled incomplete, and it was incomplete. And it was a 2nd and 6 layup for an NFL quarterback, and he bounced it. So I kind of wondered
on it. It was like a sinker.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a changeup.
Yeah,
like a changeup that just kept sinking, and then it just had nothing on it. So it's like that's the first time I've seen him just not really let it rip and shoot it out there. I mean, that didn't look like Brock. So I kind of wonder, what is the shoulder pain situation? What is the elbow? How is he feeling? His deep ball, in my opinion, in the last 3 or 4 games has hung. Some of it's been wet weather, snowy weather, whatever. So maybe cold conditions, whatever. But his deep ball seems to be hanging. His deep ball accuracy seems to be waning. This ball on 2nd and 6 to Jennings should have been absolutely lasered right in there, fired between the 1 and the 5. And instead, Jennings had to dive for it and didn't catch it. So that play makes me wonder about the arm health of Brock Purdy. But the other issue, and the first issue, is the beginning of the game. The Niners come out, they get to 3rd and 1, and they run Patrick Taylor. They can't get 1 freaking yard on 3rd and 1. And then
I was surprised they didn't do a quarterback sneak on that play. Like that,
yeah.
the success rate in that play is 100%.
And then Shanahan, I mean, seriously.
Punting.
Wait, why are you not challenging it there? Now, if we're going to play this game real, then you got to know that you can challenge any play. Remember Philadelphia NFC Championship game.
Mm-hmm.
That the announcer said, "Oh, it looked like Taylor got it." It looked like Taylor got it. And instead, it's the first drive of the game, and you're so willing to just be like, didn't get it. It's like, didn't get it, we're going for it is one thing, but didn't get it, we're punting with a game that there's no pressure at all. That doesn't seem like a first drive, let's set a tone. That doesn't seem like that at all. That seems like we're afraid of our own shadow on first down, and we don't have any confidence in Brendel, Banks, or Pooney to get any push at all. You can't get 1 freaking yard.
They always get 1 yard on a quarterback sneak. That's what kills me. Like, how do you not go to that play right there? And why do you not go for it? How do you not go for it on 4th and 1 in a game that doesn't matter?
And it's gotten to the
point. What are you
afraid
of?
Shanahan is now coaching around the roster weaknesses that he has. Late in the game, they get to the most pathetic part of this game. Excuse me if I'm just going on and on, by the way. But the most pathetic part of this game, Niners get to first and goal on the 4. Second and goal from the 4, pass play. Third and goal from the 4, pass play. Fourth and goal from the 4, Jake Moody kicking a field goal to go 13-10 into the locker room instead of 14-13. I mean, what are you afraid of? The season is over. What is at stake? Why not go for it? I'd want to go for it there just to be able to say to my guys, hey guys, we're fucking going for it, you know?
Also, I love going for it at the 3-yard line, because even if you don't get it, you can score on the next possession when the other team is at their 3-yard line. Like, you're still in a great spot.
Right. And Shanahan won't pass on second and goal from the 4 because he knows, he won't run on second and goal from the 4, which is a running down, third and goal from the 4. He won't do this because he knows he doesn't have the line to get any push. So it's like
you're right. I'm looking at second and goal from the 3. You got Purdy throwing the ball away, and then third and goal from the 3. He throws over the middle and gets his pass tipped.
Coach the game the way it's supposed to be played, and if your linemen fucking suck, then show that they suck. But don't coach around your crappy linemen and then back them publicly. You know, I mean, seriously, he coaches around his bad offensive line, and there's no way around it. I mean, it's like, it's like everybody's nice to everybody, everybody loves everybody, but they're not getting the job done. So screw the niceness. And this offensive line is bad. Really bad.
Larry, when we talk about like bringing this team back and like improving the offensive line, to me, that constitutes a philosophy change. And I think one of the reasons I'm pro trade Kyle now is because I don't think he will change his philosophy. I think the way he feels about his offensive line is the way he feels about his offensive line. And he won't lay it out explicitly, but Chris Forrester will and has, and says, why would you invest big capital in guys who don't score touchdowns? He laid it out like that. They tried it once with Mike McGlinchey. I think they regretted it. And they feel like they can get, 85% of what McGlinchey gave him with McKivitz. So maybe Kyle Shanahan will have an epiphany this offseason, but he doesn't seem like the kind of guy who has that kind of introspection. He basically feels like he knows what he's doing. He's smarter than most everyone else. And if it doesn't work out the way he thought it would, it's because someone got hurt or there was bad luck.
They just need to be. I like Kyle Shanahan probably more than you, but I would say this. Where's the grit? You don't get to be gritty because you want to be gritty. You have to actually be gritty and actually be gritty. And where's the grit of this team? This team badly needed to draft Zach Frazier out of West Virginia as a center at the end of the first round. Instead, they go with a finesse wide receiver who probably never is going to be their number 1 wide receiver.
And who wasn't the best player available on anyone's board.
Probably wasn't the best wide receiver available at that point in the draft.
Yeah.
So, it's just, the whole thing's very frustrating, but I would say that I would like to see them be a little bit more gritty. They need to invest. I heard what Sorensen said. I heard what Shanahan said. They, the offensive linemen you can get those guys in any round, except you don't. And you're leaning on kind of a subpar offensive line. What is Jake Brendel? He's a street free agent who's about 280, 285. You need a lot more substance there. What happened to Brock Purdy in this game? And in the last couple of games, he's getting guys just waltzed into his lap because they can't hold ground at the point of attack on the interior. Banks is a big-bodied guy, but he has not played well. And Pooney's getting a little tired, and Brendel's getting worked. So they don't even try to run inside anymore because they know they can't.
Let me ask you this. After the last couple of losses, I've heard locally, maybe not even just locally, but like nationally, locally, a lot of NFL football pundits, Niners pundits, they immediately go to defend Brock. Like, sure, Brock just had a 45 quarterback rating, or Brock just had an interception with the game on the line, but it wasn't his fault. He didn't lose the game for the 49ers. And beyond that, he's still going to get all the money that he thought he was going to get. Richard Sherman did it. Lombardi's done it. And not just them. Like, do you feel that way? Is this just like an inevitability about Brock Purdy getting $250 million and there's nothing that he can do to change that this year? Or are you looking at this and saying there's no rush?
Well, first of all, I mean, I don't know that, this is the offseason to do it. I mean, there's either do it or don't do it, come to an agreement on some number. But I don't think you can just kick this can down the road. I don't think you can risk a holdout to your starting quarterback. But to me, Brock Purdy was
Brock has the leverage.
Brock has leverage, I think, to get it done now. I think it's appropriate to get it done now. And it sounds like the 49ers want to get it done now. But at what dollar amount is totally up in the air. Like, the going rate, if you're going to go top of the market, like the Niners put Jimmy at the top of the market, would be $60 million. Does anybody want to pay Brock Purdy $60 million? I don't. I don't think most people want to. And then it's just a matter of how good of a deal can you get. The only thing I would say is, how do you go to Brock Purdy and say, you're not Jalen Hurts, you're not Tua Tagovailoa? He basically is those guys. So I just think that he deserves money in that range, even though I think it's a bloated range. But the whole premise of Brock Purdy as a value proposition is tied to he plays on time, he's accurate, and he's a good decision maker. But now we're starting to see examples of him not being.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is like, is or was?
Well, I mean, like second down. Let's go to the second quarter in this game. Second down. It was 2nd and 10. He gets flushed out of the pocket and he runs around. Well, he shows great movement ability to run, despite the fact he's running for his life because his line's horrible. So that's good, and you're feeling good about Brock. But then he rolls out to his left, gets near the sideline, sets his feet, and you're like, okay, he's setting his feet. And he just throws the duck of ducks into the middle of the field for Deebo Samuel, who tipped it up into the air. That play should have been an interception 10 out of 10 times, whether it was an interception from a defender or on the tip. They lucked out. It was tipped. It was incomplete. But it's that kind of late, across the middle, in a crowd, with nothing on it, with, over the receiver's head. That kind of poor decision-making we're seeing more of from Brock Purdy, and that's alarming. And that's a big part of his value proposition. He's not the same guy if he doesn't make smart decisions with the football. And we've seen him have less on his ball and make some really questionable decisions in the last month. So is that a product of having to run too much? Is it a product of having to, spin all these plates on all these fingers because your receivers are slow, don't separate, your line's no good, pressure's in your face? It sounds like Shanahan, when I've asked him about situations where I felt like Brock was too aggressive, defends Brock publicly and says, no, he wasn't too aggressive. So I think he's very much in Brock's corner and feels that Brock is not being surrounded by enough. That's the kind of the vibe I get.
He's the best tight end in football. That's a pretty good start. Juwan Jennings is pretty good. My heart doesn't break for Brock Purdy. I think what you just said in about 3 minutes in a very polite and analytically correct way is he's having a bad year. He's not having a good year. And you said, like, well, if Tua is making this much money and Jalen Hurts is making this much money, then Brock is better than them or was better than them. He's not better than them this season, and that's the crux of the issue. Do you go with 2022, 2023 Brock, or do you go with 2024 Brock? He's still 25 years old. He hasn't played that much football in the NFL. It's hard to say what his future holds. Is he going to bounce back next year and be an MVP candidate again? Or is he going to have the slow fade like Colin Kaepernick and Jimmy Garoppolo? I don't know. That's why I would really not want to give him the 60 mil, whatever 4-year extension. I'd like to see another year. And if that upsets him, man, sorry. The Niners need to stop giving away huge extensions to keep players happy. That's how they got in the issue with McCaffrey, Trent Williams, and Ayuk.
You can't have this guy hold out, though. You can't go into camp with, well, we don't. Brock's not here. We sure hope as hell we're going to get it done. And
you can sign. You can sign another quarterback. You can bring in Kirk Cousins once he gets cut for $1 million.
I mean, that's the other problem here. It's not about Brock Purdy's God. It's about Brock Purdy's the best you got, and there ain't really anybody out there that I see that you can get that I know for sure is better than Brock Purdy. Now, there are guys that look good in their situation, but Sam Darnold let's be totally honest about that. As much as I like Sam Darnold and the way he's playing this year, he's not going to be able to bring Jefferson or Addison or Hawkinson. Those guys aren't coming. And, that line ain't coming and that defense ain't coming. So I just think that Darnold would not be as good next year throwing to JJ and Pearsall and Kittle as he was this year throwing to his receivers in Minnesota.
So you're saying Darnold would struggle on this team next year?
I think Darnold would struggle more on this team than he did this year.
Does that mean that you think Purdy will struggle on this team next year?
I think the only advantage that Purdy has, Grant, on Darnold is that Purdy's got mobility. So behind this line, I mean, you saw it this year. Brock is,
but if we expect
running
Purdy
around
running for his life again and struggling again, then again, what are we paying for? Not we. It's not our money.
Yeah, I mean, here's one thing that bothers me about Purdy right now. That in the first half, I saw the stat this afternoon. Brock Purdy's 4th in the NFL in most tipped balls. He's getting a lot of passes tipped, and
I think he's number 1 in tip frequency in terms of per attempt.
Yeah, I mean, so that to me is concerning. But I also kind of feel like he's the best quarterback they have. I also feel like it's a real risk to get rid of Brock Purdy because I think that's pretty obvious that he's probably their hardest working offensive player.
For sure, but isn't there some middle ground between getting rid of Purdy and giving him $250 million?
Sure. Well, there should be.
Yeah.
I mean, the question is, even if I'm Brock, okay, let's talk about this. Let's say Brock was on this stream with us. If you said, Brock, what's the perfect amount of money? Well, the perfect amount of money is not the most because Dak Prescott's got no rings. And guess what? None of the guys who make $50 million have won a ring. None.
Right.
So
to me, it's Brock, isn't $45 million a year? I don't even know if he's worth that, but isn't $45 million a year enough? Or do you have to get 60? Because if you're one of the things that was off-putting about Ayuk is what matters to you is how much you're paid more than the team. It's the ultimate team sport. And if you're putting your individual ego above the team, then what kind of teammate are you going to be down the next few years?
Yeah,
I don't want Brock to be that kind of guy.
It comes down to the two people negotiating. Kyle Strong in the Nashville-based agent of Brock Purdy, and Parag Marathe, the Niners' chief negotiator. I believe he's still the chief negotiator. So, I mean, it really comes down to, do these guys get together and say, hey, you know what? The top of the market's 60, but we don't want to pay you 60. We'd like to pay you something that we feel like we can build a winning team around. How about we pay you closer to 45? And I think you're going to hear on Kyle Strong inside, he's probably going to say, hey, you know what? My guy's worth top of the market money. How about 65? And I think it's going to, if this is done the way I think it should be done, Kyle's agent should ask for 65 and Parag should offer 45 and they should settle on 55. And I think that's the way it's going to go down. If I had to predict it, Grant, that's what I would predict. I agree with you, though, 55. In that I agree with you that that's a ton of money. But I mean, I'm watching Cowherd the other day saying, I can't pay a guy $50 million if there's ifs. And I can understand why he says that. But are there not ifs about Trevor Lawrence? Are there not ifs about Tua? Are there not ifs about Prescott? I mean, there's ifs about all these guys. Yeah, so
do you want to be the Jaguars, the Dolphins, the Cowboys? Or
right.
Is that the model of success in the NFL?
Well, and we're going to find out. We're going to find out how Brock feels about his salary in relation to winning a championship. Because if you basically said to him, "What's perfect? What's your perfect scenario?" Would his perfect scenario be that he's the highest paid quarterback in the league? Or would his perfect scenario be that he's making $45 million a year, the equivalent of Patrick Mahomes, and the 49ers take that extra $20 million and spread it around the roster and build him out an offensive line? I mean, none of those greenbacks are going to protect your butt when Chris Jones is after you. So you're going to need some linemen. So that you got to kind of factor that in as well if you're Brock. You do
indeed. What else we got here? Hold on. Grant, check out Tyler Warren, George Kittle 2.0, says 805 Blackbeard.
Great player.
Thoughts?
He's a Penn State tight end. He's kind of an all-world, do-it-all kind of a guy.
Ethan M says, for me, Brock is not a $60 million a year quarterback. I do not believe the Yorks will pay that. It's hard to judge Brock fully based on how I feel about Kyle. He's okay. He sucks, says Ethan M. Oh, okay. How do you really feel? Chris Tallarico says, only reason they should sit Brock is if they're going to pay him. I'd make him play because he's not the guy and clearly needs the reps.
They've said they're going to play him. So is that enough? I mean, nobody really knows what anybody's going to do until it's actually done. If their intention is to pay him, and I mean, I would say this for the 49ers, for anybody, Greenlaw, Brock, or anybody else. If the Niners intend to lock you up, you should not play in meaningless football games between now and the end of the year.
It's true. And it seems like if you're playing in meaningless football games, then there's a little bit of a murkiness, a little bit of a gray area. So when we say like it's a fait accompli with the 49ers and Brock Purdy, then why is he playing in these last two games and Trent's not? Riddle me that, Batman. Is that what the Riddler would say? Riddler?
The Joker?
Bill Kennedy says Grant next to Lombardi, hilarious. They always sit me next to him on the road every time. It's some kind of a sick joke.
What do you guys talk about? What do you guys talk about? You talk
Nothing.
About, sandwiches? You talk about sandwiches?
Yeah, man. He's personality plus all the way.
Let me reenact it. Man, you can really swim, man. You can flat out swim. Hey, why don't you invite me sometime?
Whole perspective
we can swim together.
Whew. Alex says, what did you say earlier, Larry? That anyone who insisted that Kyle might have lost the locker room was a terrible journalist.
He has not lost the locker room. I mean, you can say that Devondre Campbell bailed, but like when Nick Bosa was asked about the locker room, he's like, no, it's a good room. It's a good room because it is a good room. They play hard. These guys get along. I don't think they got a lot of me guys. I think they got a lot of guys that are about the team. I think it's a really good room. They play hard. I mean, let's just say this. The Niners weren't good this year. It's a tire fire. Did you felt like they lollygagged this week or didn't bring it? No, I can't honestly say that. I felt like they
lost belief in him.
You feel
I'm
like
not saying they dogged it. I don't think they dogged it. I think they lost belief in him when he blew the overtime. I think they did. And I think they went from a team that was pretty much all in with each other and willing to sacrifice maybe money and individual stuff for the team because they were really certain they were going to win a Super Bowl to a collection of guys that needed to get paid right freaking now. I don't know. And then you had the fight on the sideline, the player quitting. It's all circumstantial evidence. You know what I mean? I don't have a smoking gun yet, Larry. I don't.
Well, I mean, first of all, I mean, you've been doing this a while. So, there's a volatility around,
losing.
Sports and sports. Just that's way greater than you're going to find at Deloitte and Touche or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There's nobody's going to fight at the copy machine at Deloitte and Touche, but guys could throw hands in practice or whatever.
Me and you have thrown hands a couple of times at the coffee spot.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I'm just the whole thing is just that it's just a lot more kind of rough and type A personalities, and there's a lot of discontent, and even I would say every team in the league has some guy that got in some other guy's face, or some player who got in some coach's face. Heck, you saw it the other day. Sirianni couldn't even talk to his D lineman because his assistant D line coach was like, I'll talk to him. Like, you're not getting through me. Did you see that?
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of volatility in this thing, and but I don't believe the players have quit on Kyle. I don't.
I'm not saying they've quit on him at all. I wonder if they have the same.
Think they've lost some belief.
I wonder. We'll see. I can't prove it. Chris Tallarico says, "Hey, now lay off Ricky. If Shanny let his rookies on the field, they should have those rookies' mistakes out of their system by the end of the season." It's true. If you put them on the field, do you think they're ready?
Ricky,
Double B Studio
I don't know about Ricky. I'm not sure if Ricky's a player or if Ricky's not a player. I'm rooting for Ricky.
Sure. Double B Studio says Kyle has done the opposite of what he should do. Moises Rosales says, love you guys, but I'm okay with Kyle Shanahan not challenging, not going for it. Get the best possession, the best possible pick. GC was saying this all week. Damn if you do, damn if you don't. Hey, the Niners lost.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad. It's bad. Okay, and I don't know how you feel about this, and I don't know what your stance on this is. Here's my stance. I know the players don't tank. I've been on NFL teams where I've been around the players that they don't tank. Tank is not part of their lexicon. I mean, that's not even a consideration. They don't tank. They have no guarantees. Nobody's tanking. Coaches, players, nobody's tanking. It's not like other sports. But I want to win the Super Bowl, and I'm all about winning the Super Bowl. And since that means you can't win the Super Bowl this year, so as far as I'm concerned, call off the dogs, put out Tanner Mordecai, and, keep everybody healthy. I want to win next year's Super Bowl. And the only thing that you can do in these last two games is hurt your chances of winning next year's Super Bowl by getting guys seriously hurt. So I would say, and guys get seriously hurt every time football is played. So just don't play those guys.
True. I'm saying. The studio says Cam Newton thinks Purdy should get $60 million. Then he says Kyle needs to get 3 quarterbacks and rotate them gamely. He says, hi. Remember for 39 months. Thank you. He says they should go after Saquon and not pay Brock. Saquon. Joseph for real says Kyle's quarterback has relied upon Kyle luck to karma ratio. He may have helped a lot of coaches on the rise, but now his aura has dwindled. We're talking aura. I'm betting that all luck is spent on last year and his karma is a sinking ship. But the thing about karma and aura is they could switch at any time. At any time.
I mean, here is the bottom line. The bottom line is this. They don't win close. What's the stat? 0 for 43 in the regular season and playoffs under Shanahan when they trail by 8 points or more in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
It's hard to win in the NFL, period, which is why I don't think he should be fired. He's only really had one down year here. They've been to 4 NFC championship games. But at the same time, you don't win NFL football games if you can't play complementary football, and they struggle with it on both sides of the football routinely. So I'm going to need to see a whole lot better complementary football, or I think it's going to be really challenging for the 49ers to win, close games against playoff caliber teams and get that championship. I mean, there is no way you win a championship without beating really good teams in the playoffs. And if you don't play good situational football, you're not good on third down, you're not good on the goal line, you're not good in short yardage, you don't win. So they're going to have to really start paying attention to all the minutia and make sure that they're improving in the little parts of the game. You can't just, pull a Sorensen and show up at the presser and be like, it was just a miscommunication. Just a miscommunication. All right.
Chris says, Larry, Brock is the best they got, but he's proven that he's not good enough. So what do? You cut bait and start over. Start over.
Come on. I mean, think about how unhappy you guys would be if all of a sudden they said, you know what? You're right. We're trading Purdy. We're signing Mac Jones. We're going to take our lumps. And 3 years from now, we're going to be good. You guys would freak.
I just feel like, if there's one thing you learn from the Jimmy Garoppolo era is you don't pay good quarterbacks great money. Don't do it. You don't do it. And the idea of paying Brock Purdy more than the Bills pay Josh Allen or the Chiefs pay Patrick Mahomes, that's a recipe of never beating those teams, ever.
But what is a good quarterback? Is a good quarterback a quarterback that wins games? Is a good quarterback a guy who looks like Justin Herbert, who doesn't win games, who's 500? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's like, I'm not sure. Everybody's got kind of a moving goalpost on exactly what qualifies as.
I think we know the difference between a good quarterback and a great quarterback, and I think we all agree that Brock's good.
But Grant, there's 5 guys making over $50 million who also are just good, not great.
Yeah, but do you envy those teams?
We can't pretend that we're not in that market.
Yeah, but do you want to enter that market? You don't have to enter that market. It's like, well, Jacksonville entered the market, so we have to enter that market.
No,
Jacksonville made that decision, so we have to make that decision.
No, you're right. But at the same time, that is the market. So you can't ignore.
Yeah, but then you look at Minnesota. But Minnesota is a very confident, successful franchise that has resurrected. Oh, that's not even the right word. That has created Sam Darnold's career, and they're like, we're not going to negotiate a damn thing with him now. We'll see what happens, and we could always get another quarterback. I really envy how I'm impressed by how confident they're moving at the quarterback position. Do you think they're being foolhardy?
Well, they have J.J. McCarthy, and they just
They do.
signed Daniel Jones. They like their team, they built up their line a little bit with Darisaw. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I personally think that they've got they had a great year this year with Sam Darnold. I'm just not convinced that Sam Darnold would have that same kind of year a year from now. So it's a tough call, because it's like, is Brock the guy? Well, I don't know, but I mean, I'll say this: anybody would look better if you could get a better line. Like, I didn't think Jalen Hurts looked good last year at the end of last year, but here we are this year. New offensive coordinator. They brought in a bigger, more physical line. They're keeping the pressure out of his face. And until yesterday, they'd won 10 in a row. So, and had the number one defense with Fangio. So they had problems. They brought in 2 new coordinators and made a couple personnel changes, and they're back on top. And it seems like the Niners are asking Purdy to do a whole lot more than it seems like the Eagles are asking Hurts. And it's like, Brock Purdy's back there shouldering the load. Hurts is operating behind a great line with great weapons, and maybe a best running back.
Well, we'll see if Kyle Shanahan changes his philosophy for Brock. Ryan says, it pains me to agree with Grant because his negative takes seem disingenuous. But he's right. Kyle won't change his philosophy, game management, and won't give up draft control, and that's why Adam Peters left. Well, Adam Peters left because he wasn't going to be a GM here, and he got a GM job somewhere else. That's why he left. But thanks, Ryan, for the backhanded compliment.
Who has control, Grant?
Final control here?
Who has final control of the draft? Because, I mean, like, sometimes you'll ask Kyle Shanahan about personnel guys, and if they're bottom of the roster guys, he has never even heard of them. And I think
it's pretty clear in the first 4 rounds if it's a skill position player on offense, it's all Kyle. I think it's pretty clear. Like, Debo wasn't John Lynch or Adam Peters. That was Kyle.
Yeah, I don't know.
Pettis, Jalen Hurd. That was Kyle.
Did Kyle want Lance ahead of his organization, or did the organization want Lance and Kyle gave in? I don't know, but I'll say this: no matter who's making the picks, they have missed 20 times in the first 3 rounds, and you can't do that.
Not good.
You just can't do that. I mean, that is the number one reason, more so than rest, injuries, long season last year, whatever, all the other things put together. None of them are as important as missing on 20 picks in the first 3 rounds.
Dazza says, why compare Brock to Tua, Lawrence, Dak? Burrow, Lamar, Mahomes, Allen, Stafford are earning 45 to 55. Is Brock Purdy better than them? No, he's not.
But everybody seems like they get, I mean, how does this work then? Everybody seems like when they become a free agent, if they're considered a top-tier quarterback or even relative top-tier quarterback, potential franchise quarterback, seems like those guys are getting big money. Now, Baker got a $33 million deal, but he was kind of a reclamation project. Darnold got a 1-year prove-it deal, and we'll see what he gets out of it. But, like, I don't know. What's Darnold worth? What's Zach Wilson worth? What's Mac Jones worth? What's Brock Purdy worth? It's like
Dak was coming off a season where he was second in MVP voting. Tua was coming off a season where he had good numbers. Lawrence plays for the Jaguars, and they have no standards, and they suck. Sorry.
Brock is like more playoff.
I just don't understand how Brock can justify asking for this much coming off the season he's coming off of. It's not like he's been good for a long time. He was great from like December 2022 to December 2023, and from December 2023 to December 2024, he's been kind of mid. So I just don't understand how he can say that he's for sure worth $60 million. Like, why don't you come back next year and prove it?
Once again, when we started talking here, I brought this up. Purdy went under pressure yesterday against Miami. 4 of 11, 44 yards, interception, 3 sacks. Pocket clean Purdy is the 6th best quarterback in the league, EPA per dropback. And yesterday, Purdy with a clean pocket, 22 of 29, 269, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks.
All right, let me ask you this.
Isn't this really more about a quarterback that's good but not great, who can't carry this team by himself behind some bad offensive line. And when you can protect him, he can do the job. But when he can't protect him, he can't do the job.
But Kyle won't protect him because his philosophy, as Chris Forrester spelled out, is to invest in touchdown scorers, not blockers. So if you feel that that's what Brock needs to be worth all this money, would you advocate for firing Kyle Shanahan or trading him and bringing in someone such as Ben Johnson, who really values the offensive line?
Well, I mean, I love Ben Johnson. I mean, and some of his red zone play calls are genius. But we can't pretend there's no risk there. He's never been a head coach. He's only been an offensive coordinator since 2022. So we're talking about kind of a dice roll now. And I don't know enough about him to say, yeah, you know what, he's the guy. Also, I don't know that the Niners could attract him. I mean, the Niners right now, Grant, for a lot of the reasons that we're talking about, might not be the most attractive destination. So,
true.
like the idea, I mean, even if
I still think they're more attractive than Chicago.
Okay. But I mean, Chicago has draft picks, capital, get some momentum. The Niners have guys that, are hurt who are going to be making a lot of money.
Chicago's a bad organization,
tied up in CMC and Ayuk and Trent and Kittle and Bosa. And realistically, how much are those guys giving you in the
Chicago's in the toughest division in the league. The Niners are in the NFC West.
And the Niners are the Niners, right? The Niners are an iconic franchise.
The Bears are the Bears.
But like the same way that Jim Harbaugh sprinted over here because he wanted to take over for Mike Singletary because he knew McLuhan had built a lot of talent there and Singletary was a horrible coach. Well, it's the same reason that teams are going to want to go to other teams besides the Niners, like Chicago, because there's some talent there and they're underachieving. They don't have a good coach now. So I think you're going to see. And then if I'm Ben Johnson, the other thing I'd be concerned about, because something's going to have to make Shanahan leave, right? So either Shanahan's going to leave because Jed yanks his sheets and issues all kinds of edicts, or Jed's going to fire him. And if he fires him, if I'm Ben Johnson, I'm like, dude, wasn't that guy in the Super Bowl last year? Isn't that an indication of isn't that an indication of dysfunction if you're firing him a year after he was in the Super Bowl? And then shouldn't I expect that you're going to be dysfunctional with me? So I don't know. There's a lot.
That's why you trade him. That's why you trade him to Chicago. Great one, 765 says Purdy is top 3 in pass protection, bad O-line. No, he's not. Double B Studio says Kyle would play Brock this year and risk injury and have a different starter next year. This is how he avoids the big contract and gets a new quarterback. Conspiracy theories.
The stat too about the Brock's held the ball a lot. That has to do with the fact that he's been rushed a lot and he's holding the ball, escaping the pocket. That's used oftentimes as a look, his line's good. No.
All right, we got to get out of here pretty soon. 805 Blackbeard says, if we want to move on at quarterback, then trade top 3 like we did with Lance. Otherwise, keep Brock Purdy in franchise, tag Mason. We traded our picks for Lance. I can't help but notice that all the quarterbacks that came out this year and were drafted in round 1 are doing well. Maybe the NFL has changed a little bit. Maybe the NIL and the transfer portal has changed college's ability to prepare these quarterbacks for the NFL because, as we've seen, reps freaking matter.
Yeah.
Kev F says, any good Ricky Henderson stories? Ask Pops too. I'll ask him tomorrow before my time. I don't have any stories like that. Dave Barclay says, you're the man, G. Larry's absolutely delusional. Trade Lyle, fire Brick, Debo, half the O-line, trade Bosa, fire all defense except Fred, Dre, Green, Mustafa, and Demo. Start Mordecai. Fire. Don't just cut, but fire.
Listen, I'm the one who said start Mordecai, but I'm delusional.
I like the idea of starting Mordecai. I thought he was good in the preseason. I wanted to see. I thought he had a live arm.
He has a great arm.
He does, right?
Got 4-4.
He's a good athlete. Jay Morris says Purdy ain't it, and even Stevie Wonder can see that. Damn. Joseph for real says, we know the true dogs in the team. One of the first instances of change in Kyle. He'll have them heal when they need it. Kyle's leadership needs intervention. Yes, sir. Joseph for real always speaks in little parable. I appreciate it. HSC 14 says, give Brock the Lamar Jackson treatment. He had to play out of his rookie deal. And finally, Chris Tallarico says, how unhappy am I going to be watching Shanny, the expert of situational football, blow another championship and set the team back again and win another. $200 million quarterback because that's how every season ends. Not this season. This season's been a lot worse than that. Okay.
And it ain't over yet.
Oh, they got a big game coming this weekend. Let's check out BetUS. Niners, Lions. A lot of people picking the Niners to win this game. 3.5-point underdogs at home. Larry, why are you picking the Niners in this one?
I'm not. I'll take the Lions right now. Okay, fair enough. I said yesterday that the Miami game was going to be like, who can run it? Can the Niners run it better with Patrick Taylor at a good Dolphins run D, or can Devin Achane run it better at the Niners, who have not been stopping the run? And I said it's going to be Achane, and the Dolphins are going to win. So there you go. It was Achane.
I think it's fair to say that Patrick Taylor Jr. isn't good. No, they would have been better off with Matt Breida. Like, I don't understand that guy got to be talk about paychecks. He's going to get 17 paychecks for nothing. Sorry, Patrick.
Can I see some Keyshawn Vaughn, some Izzy Abanaconda? Can I see those guys? I've seen.
Why did you pick up Izzy Abanaconda? I'd love to see him.
Yeah.
Green Bay, Minnesota. That's a game. Minnesota -1 at home.
I like Green Bay there. Here's why. Green Bay's coming. Green Bay is turning the corner. Green Bay is coming. It's Green Bay and Philadelphia that are going to be the two teams in the NFC that are, I think, going to push in front of Detroit. I know everybody thinks Detroit, and Detroit's a great story, but Detroit lost too many players. They have too many guys hurt. Green Bay's peaking, Philly's peaking. I think more so than Detroit. I still like Detroit to beat the Niners, but I like Green Bay or Philly to go to the Super Bowl.
All right, one more. This is an interesting game. Cincinnati and Denver. Denver out of nowhere. Sean Payton doing a really good job in the Coach of the Year running, and Cincinnati really underperforming, but Joe Burrow might be the best player in football. Who you got?
That's a tough game to handicap, man.
Whew.
That's a tough game. I'll say this. I love that young receiver from Oklahoma who plays for Denver, Mims.
Yep.
He is good.
Give me Denver in the points, man.
Yeah, I like
Denver.
Denver.
Trust Zach Taylor.
The only thing I'll say this to that's a key one. That half point's key. As long as you're getting the 3.5, I like.
Yes, that is key. I love that. That's a crafty veteran move right there. That's a big difference between 2.5 and 3.5.
Huge difference.
Huge. All right, I'm placing the bets. Go over to BetUS right now. Use code YouTube 150.
There you go.
And receive 150% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. Larry does such a better job of ad reads than me because Larry has been in radio forever and knows what he's doing. I'm over here like, what do I say? Sorry, BetUS. I really appreciate you sponsoring our channel.
You were walking on a beach in Miami just days ago. It looked.
I didn't sleep last night.
It looked amazing.
Oof. It was nice. Miami's fun, especially in December when it's not super hot. Yes, of course.
What's it like going to a place in December and having it be 75?
It makes you not want to leave.
Really?
Yeah. It's like,
Mike Kohler,
I know it's going to be overcast when I get back.
He stayed in Miami. So, man,
it's nice. It's just a bunch of people who like staying up really late, and I go to bed at 8:30. So maybe it's not the place for me.
There you go. Hawaii might be your spot. They go to bed early.
I like Hawaii.
Yeah.
Daza, real quick. This year, quarterbacks have thrown for 400 to 500 yards / 4 to 5 TDs. Why you got to put all these numbers in the thing? I got to read. Flicking 50+ yard touchdown pass with defense over the. Can you stop writing in shorthand? You're killing me, Daza. When has BP played like that? I can't read that. I'm frustrated. I don't know.
That's true. He could have said, "I don't like Brock."
There's been some big passing performances. Chris Talarico says for $200 million, he needs to be able to carry the team. Period. Shady Luke says, "I've never seen Fred as salty as he would yesterday." That's what I want to say.
Ooh, I didn't see that.
He was freaking salty yesterday.
Where? In the locker room, at the podium?
Yeah, in the post-game press conference about the Greenlaw thing. He first was like, I'm only going to talk about the defense. I'm not talking about the big pictures. Like, oh, okay, all right.
And what did he say about Greenlaw?
Well, it was very much like, we got to protect him from himself, but it seemed like emotional. Like, I can't believe we almost got him hurt again after everything he's been through. But maybe I'm just reading into that. Kelly Bassett, member for 9 months. Thank you, Ethan M. Day 2 of asking Graham to cover USC. All right.
You'll love UFC. Just
I like UFC, except for when they wrestle.
It's good stuff, man. It was, hey, man, I needed my UFC and my Korean baseball during the pandemic is all it got me through.
Now, Korean baseball, I'm all about. Larry, good stuff. Thank you very much.
Later.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Merry Christmas.